Welcome to Zoe Stories. The office smelled of coffee and printer toner, a bland, familiar scent that made mornings blend into one another. The fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over rows of desks, each one piled with papers, sticky notes, and the faint scent of hand sanitizer. To anyone else, it was just another ordinary Tuesday. But for me, every day in this office carried a secret that made my heart race and my legs tremble in ways I could never explain. Pantyhose hugged my legs like a second skin, smooth and electric. The silky nylon traced every curve, pressed gently against my thighs, and clung to my calves in a way that made every movement feel deliberate and thrilling. Every step across the tile floor sent tiny shivers of excitement up my spine, reminder that I was hiding something forbidden, yet intoxicating. No one else would ever suspect. My skirts, carefully chosen to look professional yet flattering, concealed the secret beneath, but I knew it was there, alive, pulsing, daring me to test the limits of my control. I had been meticulous about appearances for years. My wardrobe was boring enough to pass unnoticed. Fitted trousers for meetings, blazers that signaled confidence, and shoes polished to perfection. I had cultivated the illusion of normalcy with surgical precision. But beneath the fabric, the pantyhose were mine. A private indulgence, a thrill that belonged only to me. It wasn't just about the texture against my skin, or the subtle sheen catching the light. It was about power, risk, and the forbidden pleasure of knowing that no one could see, yet everyone could feel the subtle confidence radiating from me if they only knew. At first, I was cautious. I chose skirts that were slightly longer than usual, skirts that swayed just enough to feel feminine but not enough to draw attention. The opaque nylons hid the faint sheen under the artificial office lights. My heels were moderate, tall enough to elongate my legs, short enough to seem ordinary. Every movement was calculated. Every reflection I glimpsed, through glass doors, the polished metal of the elevator, or the shiny surface of the copier, was a chance to study myself, to measure the risk, to indulge in the thrill without being discovered. But that thrill was a double-edged sword. Along with excitement came fear, a tight knot of anxiety that lived in my chest and tightened whenever someone passed too closely. One misplaced glance, one moment of carelessness, could ruin everything. I had cultivated an entire persona for the outside world, competent, efficient, and utterly normal. Yet beneath that persona was a version of me that craved danger, that craved discovery, that thrilled at the idea of almost being caught. And then there was Isabella. She was my manager, sharp, observant, and impossibly perceptive. I had always admired her professionalism, the way she commanded a room with nothing more than a glance. But now, her presence carried a different weight. Every casual look in my direction, every passing comment about my work or my posture, made my pulse quicken. I feared she might see through my carefully constructed facade, yet a part of me longed for that risk. What would it feel like if she noticed the subtle shimmer beneath my skirt? Would her expression be one of judgment, surprise, curiosity, or something far more intoxicating? The first brush with exposure came unexpectedly. I had lingered near the copy room, adjusting the waistband of my skirt and smoothing the fabric of my nylons. My movements were careful, precise, but even careful movements could be dangerous. A coworker rounded the corner without warning. My heart jumped. I pressed myself against the wall, legs stiff, hands trembling as I tried to compose myself. My skirt felt impossibly tight in that instant, the nylons pressing against my skin with exaggerated awareness. They passed. Nothing was said. No one commented on the slight shimmer beneath my skirt or the careful sway of my steps. But the adrenaline that surged through my veins was unforgettable. That brief, fleeting risk, the brush with discovery, ignited a fire inside me I hadn't anticipated. I realized then that this secret was no longer just a hidden pleasure, it was an addiction. Each heartbeat, each glance, each step carried the possibility of exposure, and that possibility was exhilarating. From that moment, my perception of the office changed. What had once been a place of mundane routine became a stage for my secret performance. Every reflective surface was a mirror, every polished doorknob a lens into my hidden world. The copier, the break room windows, even the metal panel of the elevator, all became silent observers, testing my nerve and heightening my thrill. I moved differently now, aware of the potential consequences of every step, yet driven by a need to feel the power of being unseen yet alive in my own skin. Late afternoons were the most dangerous. The office hummed quietly, most coworkers having left for the day, leaving behind the faint click of keyboards and the distant murmur of phone calls. Alone in the soft fluorescent light, I lingered, adjusting my skirt, feeling the nylon trace every contour of my legs. The thrill of being alone, yet vulnerable, magnified every sensation. The smallest sound, a distant door closing, a chair scraping, could shatter my carefully constructed control. Yet I found that I craved this tension. The fear and excitement were inseparable, a dangerous combination I could neither resist nor deny. And so, each day became a careful dance. Every stride across the office floor, every adjustment of my skirt, every glance in the reflective surfaces was a negotiation between fear and pleasure. The pantyhose had transformed from a simple indulgence into a symbol of power, secrecy, and forbidden delight. They reminded me that even in the most mundane environment, danger and excitement could exist. By the end of the first week, I realized something profound. This secret, this thrill, was no longer just a private indulgence. It had become a part of who I was, woven into the rhythm of my days and the movements of my body. The office, once dull and predictable, had transformed into a theater of tension and exhilaration. Every reflection, every passing glance, every potential exposure became a pulse I could feel in my veins. I was alive in a way I had never been before, and there was no turning back. By the second week, my office routine had transformed into something unrecognizable. The pantyhose beneath my skirts were no longer just a private indulgence. They were a source of constant tension and thrill. Every reflective surface, from the glass doors of the conference room to the polished metal of the elevator, became a mirror for risk. I studied my reflection obsessively, watching the way the fabric clung to my legs, the subtle shimmer beneath my skirt, the way my posture shifted as I moved. The thrill wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Every step across the linoleum floors, every adjustment of my skirt, every brush of nylon against my skin carried the potential for exposure. And I found myself craving that risk. It was addictive, the way fear and excitement intertwined, making each passing glance from a coworker feel loaded with meaning, each footstep down the hall a potential test of nerves. One afternoon, the quiet hum of the office was interrupted. My manager, Isabella, appeared suddenly near the printer. My pulse leapt. She hadn't been expected, and in that instant, the carefully constructed persona I had maintained for weeks threatened to collapse. I froze mid-adjustment, skirt pressed carefully over my nylons, hands trembling slightly. Her eyes traced the faint shimmer under my skirt. Time seemed to stretch. "You're confident," she said finally, calm but deliberate. The words weren't mocking or judgmental, but they carried weight. Validation wrapped in risk. My pulse raced, my breath caught, and a strange thrill surged through me. Exposure was no longer hypothetical, it was here, tangible, and intoxicating. After she walked away, I felt both terrified and exhilarated. The office, which had once been mundane, had become a stage. Every reflective surface, every quiet hallway, every passing glance now held the potential for discovery. And the thought that I might be caught, or admired, ignited a rush I could neither ignore nor resist. That evening, I lingered near the break room, pretending to review documents, but my mind was elsewhere. My reflection in the polished metal of the refrigerator stared back at me, legs encased in shimmering nylon, skirt clinging gently to my form, hair slightly tousled from the day. The sensation of being half hidden, half exposed, made my skin tingle. I realized that each day, I was pushing the limits further. I was testing not only my own control, but also the boundaries of how much I could dare without being caught. The thrill began to take over. I found myself walking differently, moving with more intention, allowing the sway of my hips and the subtle glint of nylon to play across reflective surfaces. The office became my playground. Even mundane tasks, photocopying, filing, refilling the coffee, transformed into exercises in stealth and seduction. Every minor risk, every close call, heightened my awareness and made the adrenaline addictive. But with the growing thrill came a gnawing anxiety. Every step could lead to exposure. Every passing glance could unravel the careful control I had built. Fear had become an inseparable part of the experience, making every moment more intense, more vivid. I caught myself imagining what would happen if someone actually noticed, if Isabella or a coworker realized what I was wearing beneath my professional exterior. The thought was terrifying, yet exhilarating. I couldn't stop thinking about it. One afternoon, as I adjusted my skirt near the copier, the faint echo of footsteps made my stomach tighten. I glanced up and froze. Another coworker was rounding the corner sooner than expected. My body stiffened, hands clutching the edge of the counter for balance. I pressed myself against the wall, skirt tight over my thighs, breath shallow. Their eyes flicked briefly in my direction, then moved on. No one else knew, yet the possibility had been real. And the rush that followed was overwhelming. That night, walking home, my mind replayed every reflection, every brush with discovery, every moment I had felt exposed yet in control. The thrill of danger had become a part of me. I realized that I wasn't just indulging in a secret anymore, I was living it. And each passing day, each reflected glance, each heartbeat filled with risk, drew me deeper into a dangerous, irresistible game that I couldn't quit. The office had emptied for the day, leaving only the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the distant click of a keyboard from someone finishing their work in accounting. I lingered near my desk, adjusting my skirt, smoothing the pantyhose that clung to my legs, aware of every fiber against my skin. The thrill of secrecy had grown into a living, breathing presence. Each reflection in glass doors or polished cabinets seemed to whisper, "You could be discovered at any moment." I had begun testing my boundaries more boldly. Skirts shorter than usual, a slightly more revealing neckline, heels that clicked audibly against the tiles. The risk was intoxicating. Every movement became a silent negotiation between fear and desire. I wanted to be caught, yet feared it. Each passing glance from a coworker, even without intent, made my heart race. Each reflection teased me with exposure. Then it happened. The receptionist, finishing late paperwork, appeared in the hallway. My pulse leapt. I froze mid-step, skirt clinging perfectly over my nylons. My hands pressed lightly against the counter, trying to make myself small, invisible. Yet my legs betrayed me, the subtle shimmer of nylon catching the light ever so slightly. Her gaze lingered, curiosity flickering across her face. "I didn't realize," she whispered, hesitant. No laughter, no mockery, just observation. "You're confident," she added softly, her voice low enough that only I could hear it. The acknowledgement ignited a mixture of fear, exhilaration, and a secret, unspoken pride. For a moment, the office ceased to exist. Only the soft hum of lights, the reflection of my legs in the metal of the filing cabinet, and the pulse of adrenaline in my veins mattered. I realized then that my secret wasn't just thrilling, it had become a part of my identity. The fear of discovery and the pleasure of secrecy were inseparable. That night, the sensation of near exposure haunted me. I replayed every glance, every shimmer, every heartbeat filled with tension. The risk had become addictive. The office, once just a workplace, had transformed into a stage for daring and suspense. Every reflective surface, every door, every hallway became a mirror for my desires and fears. By the end of the week, I had fully embraced the danger. I walked with intention, letting the sway of my hips and the glint of pantyhose play across the floor and reflected surfaces. I lingered longer in hallways, pretended to adjust my skirt more deliberately, and reveled in the thrill of potential discovery. Fear had become a companion, and the more I danced on the edge of exposure, the more alive I felt. And yet, deep down, a voice whispered, one day, the thrill might consume me. One day, the risk could turn into reality, and I would be forced to confront the consequences of my daring game. But for now, I couldn't stop. The danger had become a necessity. Every heartbeat, every reflection, every near discovery fueled my obsession. I was trapped in a delicious cycle of fear, excitement, and secret indulgence, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The office was eerily silent. The usual buzz of printers, phones, and conversations had faded into a low hum, leaving only the echo of my own footsteps. Every click of my heels against the linoleum felt magnified, each movement a potential signal to the world that my secret might slip through the cracks. I lingered by the copy room, adjusting my skirt over the pantyhose, aware of every sensation, the silky fabric against my skin, the subtle swish of my skirt with each step, the thrilling vulnerability that accompanied each careful movement. And then I heard it. Footsteps approaching from the main hallway. Slow. Deliberate. My heart slammed against my ribs. I froze, instinctively pressing myself against the edge of the counter. My skirt clung tightly, pantyhose shimmering faintly under the fluorescent light. The footsteps grew closer. She appeared, Isabella, my manager. Her eyes immediately caught the faint glimmer beneath my skirt. Time slowed. I tried to shrink into myself, to become invisible, but my body betrayed me. My pulse thudded audibly in my ears, my hands trembled slightly, and my stomach twisted with the realization that my secret might be exposed in an instant. You've been bold, she said finally, her tone calm, almost clinical, yet carrying an edge that made my chest tighten. I wondered how far you'd go. I couldn't speak. Words tangled in my throat. The office, which had always been a mundane landscape of desks and computers, had transformed into a stage, and I was the central performer, caught between fear and exhilaration. Every fiber of my being screamed to run, yet another part craved her gaze, the validation implicit in her words. Do you realize the risk you're taking? She continued, stepping closer. Her eyes scanned every movement, every curve, the faint shimmer of nylon against my skin. I swallowed hard. Yes, I knew. That risk was the very thing that had become intoxicating. A sudden noise, a chair scraping in the distance, made me flinch. Isabella's gaze flicked toward the sound, then back at me. The moment passed, but the tension didn't dissipate. Instead, it intensified, saturating the air like static electricity. My secret wasn't just on the line, it was alive, palpable, a dangerous entity that could erupt at any moment. You handle risk well, she said softly. Better than I expected. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Exposure, once feared, now carried a strange, dangerous allure. The office, which had once been dull and predictable, had transformed into a theater of tension and forbidden thrill. Every reflective surface, the glass of the windows, the metal of the filing cabinets, the glossy tabletop of the copy machine, was a potential witness, and I was fully aware of the stakes. As she walked away, leaving me trembling yet exhilarated, I realized something profound. The game had changed. This wasn't just about secrecy or indulgence anymore. It was about control, daring, and the delicious tension of almost being caught. And I had tasted the power of exposure and wanted more. The city streets were unusually quiet that evening, the kind of stillness that makes every sound louder than it should be. I had left the office hours ago, but the tension from the day clung to me like a second skin, the pantyhose beneath my skirt still hugging my legs, a reminder of the secret thrill I couldn't shake. I thought I could breathe once I left the fluorescent lights behind, but danger has a way of following, and tonight, it wasn't confined to the office. I ducked into a small cafe I often visited after late nights, hoping for anonymity. The soft hum of conversation and the clatter of cups should have been comforting, but every reflection in the polished tables, every mirror behind the counter, made my pulse quicken. Even here, my secret felt exposed, the thrill and fear intertwining in a way that made me both alive and vulnerable. Then I saw her. Not Isabella this time, but someone entirely unexpected, a former colleague I hadn't seen in months. Their eyes immediately caught the faint shimmer of nylon under my skirt. My stomach lurched. I froze mid-step, clutching my bag, heart hammering. "Oh, I didn't expect to see you here," they said, a smile teasing the edges of their lips. Their gaze lingered too long, scanning my legs, the subtle curve of my form, the delicate sway of my skirt. "Hey, yeah, I trailed off, trying to sound casual, but my voice shook. Every word, every motion, felt exposed, as though the small cafe had suddenly become an arena. They laughed softly, a sound that could have been comforting, but instead amplified the tension. "You look different," they said, eyes flicking again to the sheen beneath my skirt. I wanted to vanish, to disappear into the shadows, yet a small, dangerous thrill coursed through me. This was no longer about secrecy. This was about the intoxicating possibility of being discovered, of walking that knife's edge between exposure and control. I took a slow, deliberate breath, reminding myself to stay calm. "Just experimenting," I murmured, hoping the vague explanation would suffice. My mind raced, calculating every angle, every escape route, every possible misstep. Then they leaned slightly closer, whispering in a tone that made my pulse spike. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" The words hit me like a jolt. I froze, cheeks flushing, heart hammering. How could they know? Had I been that obvious? The panic surged, yet beneath it was a thrill so raw, so dangerous. I couldn't deny it. Every fiber of my being wanted to run, but another part, darker and more daring, wanted to stay, to see how far I could push this secret, this vulnerability, before it exploded. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't admitted even to myself. The thrill of being caught was more addictive than the secrecy itself. The fear, the exposure, the vulnerability, it was intoxicating. My legs trembled beneath the pantyhose. My skirt swayed slightly as I adjusted my posture, and I understood that tonight, the game had changed entirely. The cafe, once a safe haven, had become a stage of tension, desire, and risk. Every reflection, every glance, every whispered word magnified the stakes. I had thought I controlled the secret. Now, the secret was controlling me. And then, as I tried to regain composure and plan my exit, a sudden shadow fell across the table. Another figure, someone entirely unexpected, was watching, their eyes sharp, calculating, and impossibly observant. My breath caught. The adrenaline surged. The possibility of exposure, of being fully revealed, was closer than ever before. I realized, with a mix of fear and exhilaration, that there was no turning back. Tonight, my secret had found its limits, and I was standing on the edge, teetering between control and discovery. Every step, every reflection, every heartbeat was a countdown to the moment when my hidden world would collide with reality. The night outside had grown colder, the city lights casting long shadows across the deserted streets. I had managed to make my way out of the cafe without immediate exposure, but the encounter lingered in my mind like a live wire. The pantyhose beneath my skirt still hugged my legs, a constant reminder of the secret thrill and danger that had followed me all evening. I paused on the corner, taking a deep breath, trying to calm my racing pulse. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my skirt, smoothing the nylon over my thighs, trying to regain control. Yet, despite my best efforts, a feeling of being watched prickled at the back of my neck. Every reflection, the shop windows, the polished car doors, even puddles in the street, seemed to hold eyes, assessing, judging, ready to reveal me. Then I felt it, a presence, deliberate and silent, moving just behind me. My heart jumped, a jolt of panic mixed with the same addictive thrill I had felt all week. Whoever it was, they hadn't revealed themselves yet, and that hesitation made the danger even more intoxicating. I quickened my pace, my heels clicking lightly against the pavement. Every step was measured, every movement deliberate. My mind raced through possible scenarios. Should I run? Hide? Confront whoever was there? Each option carried risk. Each risk carried excitement. My legs, clad in silky pantyhose, seemed to tremble with anticipation. A shadow shifted closer. The air seemed to tighten around me. I dared a glance over my shoulder. Two figures, emerging from the darkness, were approaching, one familiar, one unknown. The familiar one, the colleague from the cafe, smiled, eyes glinting with curiosity. The other's face was obscured, unreadable, yet the gaze felt sharp, penetrating. "You really are enjoying this, aren't you?" The familiar voice whispered, low, teasing, almost daring me to admit the truth. I froze, the nylon fabric of my pantyhose suddenly feeling impossibly tight, my skirt clinging in ways that left me exposed, vulnerable. My pulse thundered in my ears. My carefully constructed world of secrecy and thrill was on the verge of collapse. Every reflection in the nearby windows caught fragments of my form, every movement betrayed me. Every heartbeat counted down to a potential revelation. And then, in a flash, the unknown figure stepped closer, eyes narrowing, expression unreadable. My breath caught. The adrenaline surged, mixing fear with an undeniable, dangerous excitement. Exposure was no longer hypothetical, it was imminent, and I had no idea what consequences awaited. I wanted to run, yet a part of me, the part that had relished every risk, every near miss, every thrilling encounter, wanted to stay. The tension was electric, suffocating, addictive. The night, the shadows, the secret woven into the very fabric of my being, they had all led to this precarious moment, teetering between revelation and control. And just as I was about to speak, to make a choice that could save or doom me, the streetlight flickered and went out, plunging everything into darkness. My breath caught. The figures froze in the shadows. The air was thick with anticipation, fear, and desire, every sense heightened. I realized, with a mix of terror and exhilaration, that my secret life, the pantyhose, the skirts, the thrill of risk, was about to collide with reality. And in that moment, I understood. The next step I took could change everything. Would I be exposed? Or would the darkness, and the thrill that had carried me this far, protect me once more?